All right, let's dive into transformers and rectifiers, India Limited. Um, you know, Taril, they're trying to hit $1 billion valuation.
In the next 3 years.
Yeah, in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
We've got their Q1 and Q2 FY25 earnings calls, presentations.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Let's
interesting.
get into it.
They're not just aiming for growth. They're actually they're backing it up with some pretty solid performance.
Okay.
It's not just, words.
So, okay, Taril. They're a leading manufacturer of transformers and reactors in India.
Yeah, so you can think of them as essential to the power grid.
Right.
They're helping move electricity from generation to consumption.
Right. So they're not just a domestic player.
No.
They're the second largest in India based on capacity.
Yeah.
But they have a global footprint, right? They're in over 25 countries.
Which is impressive, especially given, the competitive landscape.
So let's get into the numbers. In Q2 of FY25, their revenue was 457 crores.
Yeah, a 75% jump year on year.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Huge growth,
And it's not just revenue. Their profitability's through the roof, right? EBITDA, which is basically how much they make from their core earnings. 236% increase to 76 crores.
Shows their strategies are working.
Yeah. It's not just luck. This is strategic. And the profit after tax. Hold on. The money they actually get to keep. A 1,272% jump to 42.18 crores.
They're firing on all cylinders, it seems.
So their order book, it's packed with opportunities. 3,500 crores as of September 30, 2024.
Which means...
It's like a year and a half.
Yeah, they're book solid.
They're good.
At least for the next, 18 months or so.
So breaking down their performance, in Q2, 65% of their orders, power transformers, 29% reactors, 6% special duty transformers.
So they're clearly strong in the power sector, but they are diversifying, which is good.
Okay, and customer base. 46% central utilities, 11% state utilities, and then a big 43% from industrial customers.
That's a healthy mix.
Yeah.
Shows they're not overly reliant on any single type of customer.
Now, their managing director, Satnam Mamtora, he said, everybody in the world is fully booked. Delivery plays a major role. So it's not just about having good products. It's about getting them there when they need to be there.
Yeah, the logistics are just as crucial as the manufacturing itself, especially when you're talking about global markets.
So 10% of their orders currently are from exports. They want to hit 25% by FY26. So, if they can get that delivery piece right,
Potential is huge.
they could be a real global player. Okay, expansion. Taril, they're adding 15,000 MVA capacity at their plant.
At Changodar.
Yeah, and it's going to be, they're going to start production January 2025, and get this plant is all about renewable energy.
Yeah, green hydrogen transformers. It's like they're looking ahead at where the market's going.
And they're getting ahead of it, right?
Exactly.
And they're also being smart about supply chain risks. Because remember what the MD said about delivery being important. So they're trying to lock in CRGO steel.
Yeah, it's essential for making transformers.
Right. And they're even thinking about acquiring a processing plant so they have control over it. And a fabrication unit that's going to be operational March 2025.
So more control, less reliance on external factors.
And this is a big one. They're going to make RIP bushings.
Which currently aren't produced in India.
They want to be 100% backward integrated by Q1 FY26. That's ambitious, but
I mean, if they pull it off.
if they can pull it off, they're in a really good spot.
Yeah, imagine the control over their costs, their quality.
Yeah. Okay, so they're doing well domestically. They're expanding capacity. They're securing the supply chain. What about the world? So they want to increase those exports, right? And they're really focusing on specialty products, high-margin products, like electric arc furnace transformers.
Yeah, they just got their first big order for one of those from ArcelorMittal in Mexico.
So they're going for quality over quantity, it sounds like. And there's more. They went to Europe recently. Rumors are flying. Strategic partnerships, maybe, with big players in renewable energy, oil and gas, even rectifier transformers.
So potentially some really big collaborations on the horizon.
Yeah. All right, so let's rewind a little bit. Q1 FY25. Remember, they're trying to get to that $1 billion goal. Q1 was a pretty big step, right?
Oh, yeah. 103% year-on-year revenue growth.
Standalone revenue hitting 311 crores. So what drove that? Was it one sector in particular?
It was actually a combination of things. Strong demand across multiple sectors, solar power, private industries, power utilities.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Nope. Which is smart.
Okay. And what about new orders? Because you need those to keep growing, right?
They brought in 698 crores worth of new orders in Q1 alone.
Okay.
And then on top of that, their unexecuted order book at the end of Q1 stood at 2,926 crores.
So they're not just coasting on past successes, they're bringing in new business constantly. Anything else stand out to you from that quarter?
Yeah, their first ever order for 4 StatCom transformers,
Oh.
which is a very specialized product, so that was a significant milestone.
So they're pushing boundaries, entering new segments, trying new things. Okay, back to the numbers. Standalone EBITDA for Q1 FY25 was 42.53 crores.
Yeah, a massive 633% year-on-year increase.
Their EBITDA margin was 13.65%. Their profit after tax, 18.41 crores, an increase of 268% year-on-year, with a PAT margin of 5.83%.
Those are healthy numbers,
Yeah.
especially when you consider, a lot of companies are struggling with rising input costs.
Right. And then on top of that, they raised 500 crores through a qualified institutional placement.
Yeah, that's a lot of capital.
That's a lot of faith from investors.
So there's confidence in their future.
So let's take a closer look at their order book at the end of Q1 FY25. We know it was at 2,926 crores, but what can you tell me about the breakdown of that?
Well, power transformers are still a big chunk of it,
Okay.
but their reactor business is growing quickly. It seems like the renewable energy push is benefiting them there.
So they're growing in a sector that's a hot topic right now. It's pretty smart. And what about the customers behind those orders?
Central utilities are still their largest customer group. And then after that, industrial customers, and then state utilities.
So good mix again. Anything else that stood out to you about Q1?
I thought it was interesting that they highlighted, their initiatives around people management, upskilling your workforce.
That's smart.
They seem to recognize that their employees are a big part of their success.
Yeah, and they need to be able to keep up with the changes in the industry.
Absolutely.
So we covered a lot about their financial performance and their strategic moves.
But this is just the beginning.
In the next part, we're going to go even deeper into their journey towards becoming a billion-dollar company.
We'll look at their global ambitions, the challenges they face, and what opportunities are out there. So we've got Taril aiming for that billion-dollar valuation, but what's next? I mean, it's not going to be easy, right?
No, not at all. There are always challenges, like competition. That's a big one, right?
Especially from those Chinese manufacturers. They can be really aggressive on price.
Yeah, so Taril's got to be smart. They've got to find a way to be competitive, but also protect their margins.
Exactly. And as they expand globally, there'll be even more hurdles. Different regulations, different customers, different cultures. It's a lot to juggle.
So it's like you need a different playbook for each market you enter.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the positives. I mean, the energy transition, that's a huge opportunity for them.
Right, their focus on renewable energy transformers, green hydrogen, all that. It puts them in a good spot.
Yeah, they're riding the wave of the future.
Yeah.
And India's own growth story, that's a big factor too.
Right, all that investment in infrastructure, especially power transmission and distribution. I mean, they're going to need a lot of transformers.
Exactly. So Taril, with their experience and relationships in India, they're in a prime position to benefit.
So they're not just, along for the ride. They're actively shaping their own success. But even with all that, there will be bumps along the way. Remember backward integration. That's great in theory, but actually getting a steady, affordable supply of raw materials, especially CRGO steel, that's tough.
Yeah, that's going to be an ongoing challenge for sure. And then there's the whole innovation game. You can't just stand still in this industry,
Right, the energy landscape is constantly changing. They got to be developing new technologies, new materials, new processes all the time.
It's like a treadmill. You stop running, you fall off.
So we've talked about the big picture, the challenges, the opportunities, all that. But what about the specifics? How do those details from the earnings calls play into the next 3-5 years?
Well, their emphasis on people, that's key, right? Investing in their employees, training them, giving them the skills they need to adapt, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, because if your team can't keep up, the whole company falls behind.
And then their commitment to becoming debt-free, that's smart. Gives them more flexibility, more options to invest and grow.
Yeah, it's like, having a clean slate. You can do a lot more when you're not weighed down by debt. And what about backward integration? Could that be a game changer?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if they can really secure their supply chain, that gives them more control, more stability. It's like, having your own garden. You're not reliant on someone else to grow your vegetables.
And those capacity expansion plans, especially for renewable energy, that's a big bet on the future,
Yeah.
right? It's like they're saying, we believe this is where the world is going, and we're going to be ready for it.
And then there are those potential global tie-ups. If they can pull those off, I mean, wow, that could really open doors for them.
Yeah, imagine the possibilities. Access to new markets, new technologies, new expertise.
It's like teaming up with the best in the world to achieve something even bigger.
But even with all the positives, gotta stay grounded. Getting to $1 billion, it's not a guarantee. There will be roadblocks, surprises, tough decisions.
Oh, for sure. But from what we've seen, Carol seems to have a good head on their shoulders. They've got a vision, a plan, and the people to execute it.
All right, let's bring in those credit rating reports. They're pretty positive, right?
Yeah, they highlighted Terrell's strong financials, low debt, healthy cash flow. That's important for a company with big growth plans.
Yeah, it means they can weather any storms, make investments, take risks. And what about the management team? The reports mentioned them too, right?
Yeah, they pointed out their experience, their track record. These are people who know what they're doing, you know?
So it's not just about having a good plan, it's about having the right people to make it happen.
And the reports also talked about the positive industry outlook, especially in India. That's good news for Terrell.
Yeah, it's like they've got the wind at their backs.
Okay, let's dive into some of the market details. Market share, realizations, that kind of thing. We know that the second largest in India, but what does that actually mean for them?
Yeah, it's got to give them some advantages, right?
Definitely. I mean, it gives them more leverage when they're negotiating with suppliers and customers. They can get better prices, better terms.
So size matters, basically.
Pretty much. And then their brand reputation, their product variety, their track record, all that contributes to their strong market position.
So they're not just a one-hit wonder. They've built a solid foundation. And speaking of foundation, their order book, 3,500 crores, that's a good chunk of revenue already locked in.
Yeah, that gives them a lot of visibility for the next year and a half.
And with their execution time frame, it sounds like they're pretty good at getting those orders fulfilled on time.
Yeah, which keeps customers happy.
So they've got the orders, the capacity, the expertise, the financials, it's all there. But let's not forget, the transformer industry is about more than just numbers. It's about real-world applications. It's about being part of the bigger energy picture. So let's talk about, the sectors they serve, starting with renewable energy.
That's where things get really interesting. We know they're seeing strong demand for transformers used in solar, wind, green hydrogen, all that.
But what's driving that demand? Is it just a trend, or is this like a fundamental shift?
It's a shift, definitely. Governments around the world are pushing for cleaner energy, and that's creating a huge market for these kinds of transformers.
So it's not just about being green. It's about being in the right business at the right time.
And Terrell, they're not just watching from the sidelines. They're actively positioning themselves as leaders in this space. They're developing specialized transformers, expanding their capacity, even exploring new technologies like green hydrogen transformers.
So they're pushing the envelope, trying to stay ahead of the curve. What about their industrial business? How's that looking?
Still strong. I mean, they're seeing demand from all sorts of industries: steel, cement, chemicals, you name it.
So even if things slow down in one sector, they've got other areas to pick up the slack.
Yeah, that diversification is key.
And what about their traditional strength, power transmission and distribution? Is that still relevant with all the talk about renewables?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even with renewables, we still need a strong, reliable grid to get that electricity where it needs to go.
So it's not a replacement, it's more like an evolution.
Exactly. And Terrell, with their experience in both traditional transformers and renewable energy solutions, they're in a good spot to bridge that gap.
All right, we've covered a lot in this part. In the final part, we're going to dig into Terrell's guidance for the rest of FY25 and beyond. We'll break down their Q2 performance, and we'll highlight the key insights from their recent earnings calls.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we've talked about where Terrell is now, their financials, their strategy, their global ambitions, but where are they going? What's next?
Well, I think if we want to really understand Terrell's future, we got to think bigger, beyond just transformers, Like, imagine transformers that are smart, connected.
Okay, so like transformers that can think for themselves. What does that even look like?
Think about transformers with sensors, They can collect data, analyze it, even use AI to predict problems before they happen. They could adjust their own output based on what's happening on the grid.
So basically transformers that can make the grid smarter, more efficient, prevent blackouts. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. And for Taril, this is their chance to become more than just a hardware company. They could offer software, data services, become a real tech player in the energy space.
So it's like they're not just selling you a transformer, they're selling you a solution.
Exactly. And it fits perfectly with everything we've been talking about, the energy transition, digital tech, the need for more sustainable solutions.
So it's a win for everyone, right? Terrell gets to be a leader, customers get better products, and the planet benefits. Speaking of the planet, what about sustainability? We've talked about green energy transformers, but what about green manufacturing? Could Terrell, become a leader in that too?
I think so, yeah. They could use recycled materials, reduce waste and emissions, maybe even partner with research labs to develop new eco-friendly materials.
So green products made in a green way. That's a good story to tell.
Hmm.
And it's good for business, right? Consumers care about that stuff. Investors care about that stuff. And what about those partnerships with global companies? We talked about those earlier. What could come out of that?
Joint ventures, maybe?
Hmm.
Co-developing new technologies, sharing expertise. Terrell could gain access to advanced manufacturing techniques, new materials, that kind of thing.
So they go from just selling to these companies to working with them, collaborating, creating something new.
Exactly. It could give them a real edge in the market. But let's think bigger. Could Terrell's success have an impact beyond just their industry?
That's an interesting question. I mean, they're an Indian company, right? Could their success be good for India as a whole?
Absolutely. I think it could inspire other Indian companies to think bigger, to go global, to innovate. It could be a real boost for the Indian economy.
Yeah, and their backward integration strategy, focusing on local suppliers, they could create jobs, reduce reliance on imports.
Exactly. It's about creating a whole ecosystem of growth. So we've talked about a lot of possibilities, a lot of potential futures. What's the key takeaway here? What should people be watching for as Terrell's story unfolds?
I think the big thing is that Terrell's journey is like a reflection of the bigger changes happening in the world. The energy transition, digital tech, sustainability, globalization, it's all connected.
And their success, or even their challenges, will tell us a lot about where those trends are going.
So this is a story worth paying attention to, whether you're an investor or just someone who's curious about the future.
Exactly. Terrell is a company pushing boundaries, aiming high. It's a story about innovation, about ambition, about the power of ideas to make a difference.
So that wraps up our deep dive into Transformers and Rectifiers India Limited. We've covered their financials, their strategy, their vision for the future, and it's clear their story is far from over.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration. We'll be back soon to dive into more fascinating ideas and innovations that are shaping our world. Until then, stay curious.
And keep an eye on Terrell because their story is just getting started.